Have you ever noticed that the moment you stop caring, everything changes? The same people who once ignored your efforts, who kept their walls high and their hearts closed, suddenly begin to feel the weight of your silence. It's strange, isn't it? The energy that once kept you chasing is the same energy that, when withdrawn, shakes them to their core. When an avoidant finally realizes you no longer care, something very interesting begins to happen in the relationship. It is almost like a turning point that neither side expected, and yet it changes everything. The moment they sense that your attention, your energy, and your emotions are no longer revolving around them, they feel it more deeply than you might think. If you have ever been with a dismissive avoidant, or even a fearful avoidant, you already know the pattern by heart. They pull away, they keep their guard high, and they create a kind of invisible wall around themselves. You, on the other hand, are left trying to bridge the distance, reaching out, explaining yourself, and fighting hard for the closeness you hope to share. This cycle can last not just for weeks or months, but sometimes for years, trapping both people in a tiring loop. But something powerful changes the moment you stop. The instant your energy is no longer being poured into chasing after them, defending yourself, or sitting in silence while waiting for them to return, the entire dynamic shifts. When an avoidant senses that you have truly stopped caring, not in a manipulative way, not as a tactic, but because you have genuinely detached from the outcome, it shakes them more than they would ever admit. This is the moment where their mask of control begins to slip, and the secure little world they built around distance and detachment suddenly feels less safe than before. For people with avoidant tendencies, control is everything. They control their space, their closeness, and their emotions. They believe that as long as they can keep their distance, they will remain safe. Pulling away protects them from being swallowed up in someone else's needs. It allows them to keep the relationship on their own terms. And when you are the one who cares too much, it actually strengthens their sense of control. They know deep down that they can disappear for a while and still be welcomed back. They know that if they withdraw affection, you will work twice as hard to make up for it. This unspoken balance reassures them. But what happens when that balance shifts? What happens when your silence takes the place of your explanations, when your calm replaces your pleading, and when your absence feels stronger than your presence ever did? Something inside of them gets triggered. It is not just mild surprise. It is something closer to shock. They suddenly realize that the control they relied on for so long has vanished. At first, the realization often appears as curiosity. They may look at you and wonder, why are they not chasing? Why are they so calm now? Why don't they seem bothered anymore? For the avoidant, the loss of emotional control is deeply unsettling. They are used to partners who try endlessly to break through their walls, who push for closeness, who demand answers. Your detachment doesn't match the script they have rehearsed for years. It doesn't make sense to them, and because of that, they begin watching you more carefully. You may notice small tests, little gestures to see if you will respond the way you once did. They might send you short texts that don't really say much, casual messages to check if you are still available. Sometimes they even drop small provocations or act in ways designed to get a reaction. What they are doing is trying to find proof that you still care. But when you do not take the bait, when you remain steady in your calmness, that is when it truly hits them, and this is where the emotional wave begins. Avoidants are skilled at hiding their inner world. They spend years avoiding vulnerability. But when they sense that you have stopped caring, they feel emotions that they are rarely prepared to deal with. It is often a mixture of sadness, abandonment, and regret. They may never openly show it. Avoidants are not usually direct with their feelings. Instead, it slips out in unexpected ways. They might suddenly bring up memories from the past, moments they had with you that they never mentioned before. They might compliment you in ways they never did when you were still giving them your attention. Sometimes their irritation comes forward, almost like anger, but beneath it is fear that they cannot quite name. The important thing to notice is that this shift is not only about wanting you back. It is deeper than that. It is about their inner world being challenged in a way it rarely is. The security of knowing you would always care, no matter how distant they became, has been removed. And without that safety net, they are forced to feel things they have long avoided. When you step away emotionally, when your love and attention are no longer chasing them, it leaves a silence that speaks louder than any argument ever could. That silence becomes the mirror in which they suddenly see themselves clearly. It forces them to notice what they once dismissed. It highlights the difference between having someone's love available endlessly and realizing that love is no longer there. And in that moment, they must face something they never wanted to confront: the cost of their avoidance. Sometimes they respond with nostalgia, trying to recreate moments from before. Sometimes they come closer with hesitation, unsure of how to bridge the gap. And other times, they withdraw even further because the feelings are too much to bear. But regardless of the reaction, the turning point has already been reached. The truth is that your detachment breaks the cycle more powerfully than any confrontation ever could. It is not loud. It is not dramatic, but it is undeniable. This is why many people who once felt powerless in avoidant relationships find strength when they finally stop caring. It is not about revenge. It is not about teaching the avoidant a lesson. It is about reclaiming the energy that was always yours and redirecting it toward yourself. The avoidant feels this change, whether they admit it or not, because the dynamic that gave them control no longer exists. And here lies the paradox. The very moment you no longer chase is often the moment the avoidant starts to notice you in a way they never truly did before. Your silence becomes louder than words. Your absence becomes more meaningful than your presence ever was. And while they may never fully express what they feel, inside they know something important has been lost. It's really about their hidden fear of losing someone who was always quietly present in their life. Your calm detachment forces them to finally face their own dependence on you, something they have tried to push down and deny for so long. Deep inside, people with avoidant tendencies crave love, care, and closeness, just like anyone else. The difference is that they don't always know how to deal with it without feeling like it might swallow them whole. When you stop caring in the way you once did, it feels to them as though the ground has shifted under their feet. Suddenly, they recognize that you were the steady anchor they relied upon, even while they kept you at a distance. And all at once, the very thing they believed they needed, space, separation, control, starts to feel like a heavy loss that cannot be brushed aside. This is one of the reasons many avoidants come circling back just when you begin to move forward with your life. They aren't always consciously aware of it, but when they lose your attention, it feels like their security net has been ripped away. Another powerful change happens the moment they notice that your energy has moved elsewhere. People with avoidant patterns are very sensitive to whether or not they still carry emotional weight in your world. When they see you growing, flourishing, and focusing on yourself, or even just resting in a peaceful state without them, it unsettles the control they once felt they had. Your silence, your indifference, your calm detachment ends up speaking far louder than any words ever could. They no longer see a person waiting for them to change. They see a person who has broken free. And while they might never admit it openly, that freedom inside you often stirs fear inside them. They suddenly realize they have underestimated your quiet strength. That awakening shakes their old belief that they could keep love and closeness at a safe distance forever. Of course, not every avoidant reacts in the same exact way. Some will tighten their defenses even more, doubling down on the act of not caring. They'll tell themselves over and over that they are fine without you, that they never needed you anyway, that your presence was never that important. But even as they whisper those thoughts, the reality lingers at the back of their mind. They notice that something has changed. They remember little moments with you. They replay conversations. They scroll through your social media late at night. They may even rush into a new relationship or date someone else, not because they have truly moved forward, but because they are desperate to cover up the sting of your distance. The deepest irony of all is that your lack of interest ends up showing them what real intimacy could have been. By losing the warmth of your presence, they are forced to look at the truth they have been running from for so many years, that love always demands vulnerability, that connection cannot be controlled like a switch, and that walls cannot protect them forever. For many avoidants, this realization becomes a turning point they never expected to face. Some of them will finally begin to admit feelings they had buried far too long. They may reach out, not with shallow words or casual gestures, but with genuine attempts to reconnect. You might notice a softness in them, a new vulnerability, a fragile openness that feels unfamiliar even if it comes out awkwardly. Others may respond in the opposite way, spiraling deeper into confusion, withdrawing even further, and wrestling with the loss in silence. Either way, the moment they realize you no longer care in the same way shatters their old cycle of certainty. It forces them to confront parts of themselves they've spent years avoiding. And for you, this moment becomes powerful too, because it highlights the difference between caring from a place of fear and caring from a place of inner strength. When you are chasing, waiting, and trying to prove your worth, you are giving away your power. But the moment you let go, the moment you stepped back and detached, you reclaimed that power. And avoidants feel that shift more than anyone, even if they never tell you directly. The beauty in all this is that it was never about punishing them or playing cruel games. It was never about making them suffer. It's about you finding your balance again. It's about understanding deep in your soul that you never needed to prove your value to someone who kept running from closeness. The moment you stopped chasing and stopped caring in that desperate way, you reminded yourself of your own worth. You showed yourself that you could stand on your own 2 feet. And in that quiet freedom, something even more powerful is born. Here lies a deeper truth that many people don't want to look at. The truth that sometimes letting go is the most profound act of love for yourself. The truth that detachment is not about coldness, but about clarity. And the truth that your silence can speak volumes, awakening in the avoidant what words could never reach. Sometimes the avoidant does return, but it is not always out of genuine love. At times, it is only to check if they still hold some kind of power over you. They want to see if you will still reply, still show some emotion, still offer them the comfort of knowing that their distance has not really cost them anything. Often, it is simply about calming their ego, proving to themselves that they are still wanted, that they are still important in your eyes. And yes, there are moments when it is truly real. There are times when they feel the shock of losing you strongly enough that it forces them to face parts of themselves they had been avoiding, and they may even try to approach things differently. But here is the real truth. You are no longer sitting and waiting for it to happen. That is where freedom begins. When you honestly stop caring, their actions no longer define your worth. Whether they reach out with real care, with mind games, or not at all, you are standing on stronger ground now. You are centered. You are no longer weighing your value based on their reaction. This is the true shift of power. because while they are still trying to understand what this change means, you have already found calmness in no longer needing an answer from them. When an avoidant realizes that you no longer care, it acts like a mirror reflecting back their deepest fears. They see the price of their distance in a way that words could never explain. They feel the emptiness created by their walls, and for the first time they cannot run away from it. Whether they choose to act on it or hide from it, they will never forget the moment they lost the emotional control they once depended on. For them, this is unsettling, sometimes even frightening. But for you, it is freedom. Because your healing was never supposed to depend on whether they wake up to their old patterns or not. Your healing truly begins the moment you stop chasing love where it feels unsafe, and instead start choosing love where it feels shared and mutual. That is the real turning point, not only in that relationship, but also in your life. The silence that once felt like rejection now feels different. It starts to feel like an open space, an invitation to build something better for yourself. That is what real power looks like. When you stop running after them, the avoidant is left facing their own reflection. Always remember, your worth is not measured by who comes into your life or who walks away, but by the sense of peace and strength you create the moment you finally choose yourself. If you found these words meaningful, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need this reminder today. Until next time, be gentle with your heart, protect your energy, and never forget the quiet strength that comes from choosing your own peace above all else.